Today, the Supreme Court has sent out a clear message to the Modi government on dealing with drought-hit states. The Apex Court has told the government they cannot hide behind smoke screens, citing the lack of funds, and has ordered the government to release adequate funds for the MNREGS immediately. Yogendra Yadav, co-founder, national convener of Swaraj Abhiyan, who has, of course, been pursuing this matter, joins us now. Yogendra, good to have you back on the show. We were waiting for the court to put out the second part of its order, and the more substantive material order is now out today. Can you detail for us what the court has directed the central government to do?
Basically, this is a historic order, and it's a historic order for, I think, 3 levels we can see. One, because it offers some concrete relief to a very, very large proportion of our population. The orders are that in the drought-affected areas, there would not be any distinction of eligible, ineligible, BPL, APL, or whatever. There would be a universal coverage of PDS ration. Everyone would get it, even if they do not have ration card, for the period of drought, only in drought-affected area. Now, that's an order which would affect more than 100 million people in the country. Then there is an order concerning the midday meal. The order is that it will continue through the summer vacation in all the schools. The school may be closed, but the midday meal will be offered. And midday meal shall include milk or egg 5 days a week. Now, that's an order which should affect about 50 million students in these rural drought-affected areas. Apart from that, there is a clear order on Manrega which says that adequate funds will be released in time so that there is no delay in payment, which has been the problem in the last 4 or 5 years. So at one level, there are concrete judgments, concrete relief. But beyond the concrete relief, this judgment also strengthens the institutional framework of how National Food Security Act is to be implemented, how the Disaster Management Act is to be implemented, and how Manrega is to be implemented. This entire institutional setup, machine, oversight bodies, all the statutory bodies which were meant to be placed in order but were not there, all of them have been strengthened. And at the third higher level, this judgment says you cannot use lack of money as a pretext for not delivering on fundamental rights, that drought is a disaster, and that in the last instance the buck stops with the central government. This is the real significance of this judgment.
But what is the mechanism that the court has put in place to ensure that all of this is actually executed on the ground? I mean, we're talking about NREGS and the funds allocated in the budget as per the NREGS, but the ground reality is very, very different. So what is the mechanism that the court has now put in place to ensure that its directions are taken seriously?
We had requested to the court that maybe the court should appoint independent commissioners. But actually, court has gone one step further. Court says, although we've passed an order, but this petition continues. And the court says, we shall monitor it. So on the 1st of August, the court will take a review, a stock of all that has been done, whether these orders have been implemented, and if necessary, they can issue fresh orders. So they have used a technical principle called continuing mandamus, which is to say this particular matter is such that it requires routine monitoring, regular monitoring, and the court, for the time being, has taken it upon themselves. Later, they may appoint independent commissioners, they may not, but right now the court itself is monitoring it.
What could be the financial implications of this order on the government's finances, Yogendra?
I haven't done the calculations, but clearly on Manrega, if they were to be true to the principle that the Supreme Court has laid down, then the government would need to spend something in the range of 65,000 crore rupees this year, while they have budgeted only 38,500. So that's neat, about 25,000 crores. And the additional food requirement on the NFSA, National Food Security, and midday meal, that should be another, I guess, about 5,000 to 10,000 crore rupees. But these are very, very rough figures. I'm not a very good economist like you.
No, absolutely. I understand that these are ballpark numbers that we're working with, but we also know what the finance minister said. In fact, the government has said that we've set aside 7,000 crore rupees for drought relief, and, you know, let's spend that first. Seems to be the opinion of the government. But Yogendra, before I let you go, let me also ask you this. you know, as far as the National Food Security Act, for instance, is concerned, once again, it boils down to execution at the state level. Similar story for the NREGS. You know, what will be done as per the Supreme Court's directive now to ensure that state governments also comply equally?
You're absolutely right. When the Supreme Court gives an order, goes to central government, goes to state government, and we know many of these things do not reach the ground level. And that's why the initiative must be taken by civil society organization, by movement groups, and we in Swaraj Abhiyan have decided that we shall now launch a campaign to take these decisions to the ground level. We are starting a yatra, foot march from Marathwada on the 21st. So all over the country, we along with several other organizations would go to villages, distribute pamphlets and say, let's form committees, let's do a citizens oversight. Supreme Court has taken an initiative. Unfortunately, the initiative should have come from the government, should have come from parliament and assemblies. But now everyone has to join. People in media like you who've been very attentive on this question, everyone has to come together. And we are trying to put in our bit. And if I may take just half a minute more of your program, we're doing something that might interest some of your viewers. We are saying to all university and college students, please spend 1 week during this summer vacation in a drought-affected village. That's Drought Duty campaign from our side. Maybe all of us should join. Try and experience that. That in the long run is what we need more than the Supreme Court judgment. Supreme Court judgment can go only this far. If we have to take it down to the village, down to the ground, all of us have to come together, which is what we are trying.
You're absolutely right on that front. Yogendra, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us. We will, of course, continue to track this story with you, and we will, of course, return to address what has transpired on the ground as per the Supreme Court's directive on the 1st of August when the court takes up this matter again. But appreciate you joining us here on India Business Hour.